a signal now for when I'm needed. But when that light hits the sky, it's not just a call. It's a warning to them.
Hello everyone, welcome back to The Slime. I'm Diego Pizarro. As always, I'm joined by Ben Smith.
Hello everybody.
And today we are talking about Batman, the emo superhero, particularly Matt Reeves' The Batman, the most emo of the Batman movies, probably. Ben and I have recently rewatched the film and are ready to give our thoughts on it. So Ben, what are your thoughts after diving back into this universe?
Oh man, like the entire time watching it, it's just kind of me appreciating it. Like, I'm just so taken by this movie every time I watched it. Thoroughly impressed every time I watch it. What about you?
I'm kind of I have a complicated relationship with it because I never really go back to it, but every time I do go back to it, I'm like, I should really watch this more.
Yeah.
This is amazing. But there's just something that keeps me from watching it too often. Like this time was the third time I watched it, and like I said, thoroughly enjoyed it again. Amazing movie. But I'd say if you haven't seen it before, you kind of got to have your expectations tempered a bit. It almost feels like Batman's most like hangout kind of movie. Like it really moves kind of slow.
Yeah. And I kind of like that because it's introducing an entire new world to us, and it doesn't like tell everyone's beginnings again. We're kind of just thrown into it. So like just seeing how these characters operate on a day-to-day basis, but more really seeing how these characters operate when under like a stressful situation, because the main plot is affecting everybody in this movie. Batman, Catwoman, and Penguin, they're all somehow involved in this intertwined plot of like the Riddler causing chaos in Gotham. So I like that, which kind of just brings me to like this visual representation of Gotham. Like, what do you think of this Gotham as a setting compared to like other Gothams from, say, the Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy?
Well, it's a lot better than the Christopher Nolan trilogy on visuals. I still think, the Dark Knight would have it beat on story and performances and characters. Yeah. But as far as just look, I mean, it has a very distinct style, and it's very immersive. And I just said the movie moves slow, but that's kind of okay because it's kind of just this cool world you get to hang out with, and hang out in and kind of see. And they do it in a really subtle way. Like I wouldn't say it's too over the top like Tim Burton's was. It still kind of looks like our world, just something's off, a bit of uncanny valley kind of thing, which I think adds to the unsettling feeling the movie gives.
I feel like, and that unsettlingness is like exactly what I want from my Batman movie. Like, I'm a fan of all Batman media, comics and games, even the TV shows I watch, a lot of the animated cartoons. So like, when it comes to Batman, this is how I like it. Like, it's how I like it. It completely appeals to me and the type of Batman fan that I am. But I do feel like Gotham is its own character in this movie.
Mm-hmm. And this movie really embraces the darkness in every single way. I mean, even
do you think a little too much?
Maybe. I think it's a cool new direction. Yeah. I think it's a smart direction for them to go in. I guess not a new direction, but it feels like they're leaning into it more than even some of the darker Batman movies from the past, whether it's like Batman Returns or whatever. It's The Dark Knight. And I will say, even how they portray Batman, like I really like how they are big on showing the fear Batman inspires in this one more. Like when he shows up and starts fighting, it's not a triumphant, heroic music. It's like a sting, like from Psycho, that goes off every time.
Oh shit!
Yeah, and the way the scene when the bat signal first goes up and you see the criminals really freaking out, and the guys on the subway seeing if he's in the shadows or not. Like I've never seen the fear played up so much. He's portrayed a lot more in a complex manner.
Yeah, you just going through that entire beginning of the movie just makes me think about how awesome of an introduction they give Batman in this movie. Like you said, they take that fear approach, and what I like about that sequence is like how he narrates over it at the beginning, and it feels like a comic book. The way that he narrates Gotham and how it's Halloween, like it's so reminiscent of a couple famous Batman comics, Batman Year One and The Long Halloween. So the fact that it adapts those storylines and even some of those visual feelings end up in this movie too. Mm-hmm. What about Robert Pattinson as Bruce Wayne and Batman?
I think he's solid, very convincing. I mean, look, his Bruce Wayne is different to me.
It's the most different from all of them.
I'm used to seeing him confident more. I associate my Bruce Wayne is Christian Bale because of the movies I've seen the most. I definitely probably can take Robert Pattinson a bit more seriously as Batman. I feel like his voice is a bit better, and I mean, he's fine as Bruce Wayne. It's a darker, more kind of emotional, I guess.
He's very young though.
Yeah, that's true as well.
And like I like the story that they're telling, and I can assume where it's headed, that Bruce Wayne right now is just acting very washed up, and he's not a part of the community yet. He's not a part of Gotham yet. His parents have died, and he hasn't really done anything.
It's only been 2 years he's been doing it, right? I think they mentioned at the beginning of the movie, he's like, I've lived that night for 2 years.
Yeah, he's only been Batman for 2 years at this point. So it is a great time to approach it. I don't want another origin story. It was a very, very good decision for them to just throw us into it, right? Especially when they've told the origin story 1,000 times. Everybody knows
Batman is. A good chunk of people know he's really called Bruce Wayne because Batman's on a pop culture level of just an icon, right? Everybody knows who he is. So you don't really need to do all that again. You can take it in a different direction. I also think this movie plays up the horror aspect way more than any other. I mean, the Riddler's first kill is a perfect example.
First scene in the movie, right? And it's playing Ave Maria, creepy, unsettling, gruesome, awesome. And then after it introduces Batman as fear, first and foremost, he shows up at the crime scene. And what I love is Gordon putting his trust in Batman, but the entire rest of the police force not. That's something we see often in Batman comics, especially at the beginning of Batman's career. I think they approach that really well, which creates, I wanted to ask you about this kind of buddy cop situation between Batman and Gordon.
Yeah, they definitely, we definitely see them work together outside of, just discussions on a roof by the bat signal, right? Like you're seeing
that stuff is important to Batman.
Yeah. And you're seeing them, actually get into some various situations with each other, even fighting a bit. And that's definitely a new angle. And I think their relationship is pretty solid and believable in the movie.
Yeah, and they throw us in by, subtly throwing in a couple lines that Gordon doesn't know that it's Bruce Wayne yet. He doesn't know his identity. And very, very early on. And having everyone kind of not know if the Batman first and foremost is legit, or everyone's view, do they think he's a menace, or do they want to get rid of Batman, do they see him as a guardian yet? Obviously not.
No.
But this movie ends and the city's view on Batman is a lot different. We'll get to that much later though. But
another point I want to bring up, I love how they updated the gadgets a lot in this movie, the way they used more technology that feels current and could be possible in the near future.
He utilizes his arsenal.
I think a lot of the gadgets in almost every Batman movie, somewhat samey. They definitely have pulled it forward, but this one feels like the biggest jump to like a modernization of Batman's gadgets. I mean, the eyes was a big one. The digital eyes where he can see Catwoman's perspective from the Batcave.
That was a huge aspect of this movie. It involved itself in the plot a couple times, and man, I just really enjoyed that. Also, there's just so many elements to this movie I really like, but what's really important about Batman is He's the world's greatest detective. Now, he's obviously not the world's greatest detective yet, but he's on that path to it. And this movie explores Batman almost just as much a superhero as he is a detective.
Yeah, they really play well. I mean, a lot of people talk about it being kind of having a noir influence.
Yeah.
And you can definitely see that with it focusing on the detective aspect of Batman a lot more.
It's just, and I think this movie was created like the stars aligned. They did not have to tie this to anything. Matt Reeves was handed a script before. When he was first approached to make this movie, he was given a script and he turned it down and said, that's not how I'd like to approach this. And he gave his pitch as to the type of story he would like to tell for Batman, and they fucking let him do it. Mm-hmm. And look what we got.
Yeah.
When nobody told him what to do, what he has to include, he just got to make his Batman movie, and it turns out it's something that a lot of fans really, really enjoy too.
And it just proves that the DC canon should just lean way more into the darkness, because that's what they're good at, and that's what people seem to like.
That's not going to get old. People will forever like movies that are darker. It's such a broad term over movies. There's bright movies and there's dark movies, so like they should just totally veer into that lane, I think, and erase a lot of the rules and just tell these intimate stories.
Mm-hmm. And this movie's just so impressive too, because it continues kind of the Batman streak as a pop culture entity of like making a comeback. You know, there's been a lot of Batman movies that have been poorly received and are seen as terrible, but it always manages to make a comeback and come out with a movie that just blows everyone away. And if you think every decade since the 1980s, it's basically there's been at least one Batman movie that's considered like top tier, right? Batman 89. Then you got Batman Returns for the 90s, which is considered great. Then obviously The Dark Knight for the 2000s, Dark Knight Rises for 2010s, and now this one for 2020s.
Affleck too.
Yeah.
Ben Affleck. Mm-hmm. Which is, I kind of wanted to just quickly ask you, what is your favorite Batman and what is your favorite Bruce Wayne, them as two separate characters? Who is your favorite portrayal of Bruce Wayne and who is your favorite portrayal of Batman?
I feel like I don't know. I feel like I might like Robert Pattinson
as Batman.
Batman right now. I don't know if this is my favorite Batman movie, but I really buy his performance as Batman, if that makes any sense. Yeah. I mean, and then Christian Bale probably for Bruce Wayne.
Me too.
His Batman voice is hard to get past, so that kind of brings him a bit down. It's not distracting. It doesn't take away from the movie, but it's definitely noticeable. So definitely him as Bruce Wayne. I would almost say that Michael Keaton is more consistent than the both of them, because I think he plays both really well, but I would say neither one necessarily stands out at the same time.
Right.
So I go with that.
When it comes down to it, like, not a lot of people have a lot to say about Ben Affleck's Batman, the Batman in the DCEU, you know. But that, I think, is a Batman I really, really like. But it's a shame because every time we saw that Batman, he was kind of a side character in his own movie, right? Yeah. Being in the Justice League, he's a side character, and being in Batman versus Superman, like, he had to share it with another character, so he didn't really get a fair chance at having his own Batman movie.
And very briefly in Suicide Squad, I believe, or what?
He did make an appearance.
Like really briefly, and that was about it.
He made an appearance. It might not have even had been Ben Affleck. It could have been a double from how quick he was in it. But
I have a hard time buying Ben Affleck, though. He was good as Batman, but there's something that rubs me the wrong way about Ben Affleck. I have a hard time. I don't know what it is.
He's a huge fan, though. And like he did also have a vision, and he had a script written, and it was also turned down. Just like how WB presented. WB could have possibly, I could be wrong, but presented Ben Affleck's script to Matt Reeves, and Matt Reeves said, no, I'd like to do it a different way. Which is, you know, I advocate for that. let the writers and directors make whatever they want to make without any interference from, higher up in the chain. But back to this movie, man. Just the design, I think. What about like the tint and the color of the movie? The way that like light is an aspect in this movie is so important, and it's so beautifully shot.
Yeah, well, it's either very dark and kind of gray, but they also get these beautiful like reds with a kind of an orange. These warm colors are like. But it's heavy contrast
against the darkness. Really deep contrast in these scenes. Whether them being like, it's always raining and it's always at night and it's always dimly lit by like these yellow overhead street lights. So the scene that this movie creates is just great. It is Batman. Like the identity of this movie, I think, is so present and bold for them to go with the Riddler. But I think it's the best choice, because throwing us right into the Joker isn't always the best decision. You kind of want to see what kind of Joker in this city would create.
Yeah, right? And I don't think they should give it away too quick. And this is coming off pretty recently off the Joker standalone movie. So I feel like it's just a smart thing to bring in another villain. And I feel like they just make up for it by exploring Batman's backstory and his psyche and his trauma a lot more.
Yeah.
It's very centered around him. I feel like this is the most kind of shades of gray Batman. It's not so black and white. Like if you look, his family wasn't all it's said to be. And
exactly. I like how it started to uncover that dark side.
And even the Riddler was like, you call yourself an orphan, you're just some rich kid.
Yeah, which reminds me, I wanted to ask you your opinion on if I kind of made the statement that this movie is about children, orphans whom the system failed. People who've actually went ignored in the world, innocent people who needed help. That's what a kind of character was made with Catwoman and Riddler and Bruce Wayne. All of these people are outcasts and people that have been neglected, and those are a lot of the characters that Gotham itself as a city usually creates. So what do you think about the way this movie, all the characters jive together?
I think there is definitely that common thread, kind of the forgotten people left behind. And I would say it also delves into a lot more how power played a role in putting the people in this place, and we should get our vengeance.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that speaks to also a lot of the Batman movie's ability to really represent the era they were made in. Like, it feels like a very 2020s movie. There's a lot of, we're basically having a, cultural awakening or whatever in this society, like a reset where everybody's kind of questioning the systems of power and if we're equal or not, and the people that get left behind. And there's a ton of that in this movie.
It's like the main theme of this movie, but mostly like centered on children and orphans and people who didn't get the help they needed. Which
I think it does a good job at, like, this is the Batman movie for the 2020s, in the same way that I feel a lot of the Christopher Nolan stuff feels very post 9/11, very of that time and kind of how it's set up. So
what's weird in this movie? The lady who's running for mayor, that's kind of side plot, if you will, seems so off and pointless to the overall plot of this. There's somebody running for mayor and she wants to change things, and that's about it. It doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that too much.
But, like, now that you do, like, she had 2 or 3 scenes and didn't ever really serve a greater purpose.
Well, she kind of exists solely to just I think, push the plot with the person she's running against, the incumbent mayor. But that's kind of about it. Unless she's supposed to represent something. Unless
she's supposed to,
or do something
in this situation, be set up for the next movie.
Yeah, also that as well. I don't know. Is it that deep where she would represent something? Like, I don't know. Maybe she represents all the good parts of Batman.
The hope, I guess.
Yeah, the hope
for a positive change.
Yeah, none of the violence. And doing it in a slower way and less direct way.
Yeah.
I don't know. We're probably reading too much into it.
Well, I did do a little bit of research on other people's opinions and stuff. So some of these themes are things that people have mentioned and talked about. Just when you really nitpick and look for things that you might not have been a fan of, that might be one of them. And I think an extra scene at the end, God only knows how many extra scenes this movie could need because it's over 3 hours long. Mm-hmm. But I feel like that could have been wrapped up and served a little bit more purpose. But
yeah. What do you think of the action in this movie? Because there were some scenes, particularly the one where they're in the dark hallway and you only see them when the gunshots go
beautiful.
Off. I've never seen anything like that before. There probably is something like it, but I was very impressed. It looks so cool.
That like a scene like that was one of the first concepts of this movie. I guarantee you, since this movie was first beginning to be written and pitched, that like scene of Batman walking through this dark tunnel with the gunshots going off, guarantee you that was one of the first elements to come into this movie.
And the guys are freaking out and shooting because that's the only way they can see him, and that very well done. Also, when towards the end of the movie, when the arena floods and he's swinging out over the water, he's about to fall, but they kind of put it with the red lights and the blue lights. We're talking about the visuals. That shot was amazing too.
The scenes that they create. And like visually, the visually stunning scenes they create add to the identity of this movie.
And it feels like they understand comic books because those shots kind of look like comic book drawings.
So dramatic.
Because of the really saturated colors.
Yeah.
Those are people who care about comic books for sure.
A lot of those shots are, different versions of what we've seen before in Batman literature. So, as a comic fan, it's really cool to see that type of stuff and to keep those scenes relevant because this is a comic book movie. But this is up there with one of the most comic booky feeling movies, right alongside Spider-Verse. But this is just a different achievement because it's live action.
Yeah, and you don't notice it as much unless you don't notice it right away. I just thought of it now, thinking back on it when we were talking about the vibrant colors. I think it's a lot more subtle, obviously, than Into the Spider-Verse, whatever it be. How does this one stack up for you, though, against the other Batman movies? Is it the best? Because some people say it's reinvented everything. It's the best one.
I'm probably holding it. It's hard, but my gut tells me to hold it at second place below The Dark Knight.
I would agree and keep it there. But
but there are things this movie do a lot much better than The Dark Knight.
Visuals right alone is the big one.
But does it make it a better movie?
I would not. I would say no. But I guess it depends what you think the purpose of a superhero movie is.
It's so great that it has to be mentioned now, up there with all the other Batman movies. So
do I like it? I definitely don't know. Maybe it's third because I really like Batman Returns.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that has more to me with being a Tim Burton fan because that's just such a Tim Burton-y movie, the set design and the look. But I don't know. I really love that movie, and I think it's dark and out there and one of the most experimental Batman movies, and I think the performances are amazing in it as well, particularly from Danny DeVito as Penguin.
Yeah, like that's iconic stuff, And did this movie create iconic stuff like that? Probably just the most is Robert Pattinson's Batman.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah,
over time, but it doesn't feel like it. I don't think.
No,
you don't see lines being quoted online or anything like that.
No, the whole vengeance thing kind of stuck.
That's true. To me, it seems like
maybe.
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it feels like it's one of those movies that's known for being a really good movie, but it does. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be like it doesn't have lines being held up as much as other Batman movies. So
I'm not. Isn't Matt Reeves doing the next one also?
That would be. I mean,
because this is his universe he's created, right?
It should.
Yes, it is. It's set for 2025. Directed by Matt Reeves.
The Batman Part 2. Keeping it simple. Is that a working title? I wonder. I don't know. Man, but it's I'd second or third.
It teeters for me between the best, just because I'm a huge comics fan, and it just appeals to me a bit more. So in that sense, I am biased towards it.
Do you, as a Batman fan, I don't have a problem with this, but do you, as a Batman fan, feel that Tim Burton injected too much of his own style into his Batman movies? Not that they're bad, but why they wouldn't be as good. Because his design style is like so clear, and apparent in those movies.
You know, I think I'm just gonna say, do you, man? If you're Tim Burton and you want to make a Batman movie with your own twist on it, I think you should be able to do that. So I'm completely on board, and I don't think it's overboard because it became a phenomenon. So yeah,
I love it, and I think there's some cool throwbacks. Even how the cities are painted and they kind of look like 1920s.
Best soundtrack though.
Yeah, that's a great one. Well,
I think that's the best soundtrack of any Batman movie.
Those movies though have weird aspects to them everywhere. Because I mean, the first one is Prince doing the soundtrack, which is just strange. And you see him when Joker first takes over that place, and they're all dancing to. I think it's Party Man or something like that. That's what the name of the song is. Or you hear it playing out of people's cars, and it's used kind of lightly. Other than those two things, I can't really remember. By the way, side note, if anybody has not heard the Prince song that closes off the Batman soundtrack, Bat Dance, do yourself a favor. It's so cool. It's like Prince kind of funk music, but it's compiled with all these lines from the movies and all these sounds from the movies.
Wow, really? I've never heard this.
It's such a fun listen.
All right, I'm going to check this out.
Coolest part, shows how big Batman Fever was in 1989. It was a #1 hit.
Really?
I'm pretty sure. Let's check it right now.
Let's fact check.
I'm pretty sure it was like a massive hit, Bat Dance, on the charts. But if you haven't heard it,
so on that, like, I take it you are a fan.
Yeah, it went to #1 by the
soundtrack. Okay. Yeah. What about, how do you think of Nirvana's involvement in kind of becoming the theme of this?
It's a interesting choice, for sure, because there's such a recognizable. It really gets the emo vibe going.
But it is badass.
No, it's great, right? And I think it's a risky move because you're picking such a recognizable artist that it could take people out of it. But they just picked the right song. Yeah. And it's the perfect introduction to the city when he's driving around on the motorcycle.
I think that is my favorite moment in the movie, is that when the song is playing and he's doing his voiceover at the beginning. When I saw that in the theater, I was smiling from ear to ear because I'm like, oh, yes, just right away. I'm like, yes, I like this approach. Yes.
And you get the wide shot of the street in one part where you see all the buildings, and that's
introducing Gotham, introducing you to Bruce Wayne and showing him how he operates on a night-to-night basis as Batman. Really, really cool.
Yeah, and it just makes Gotham feel like an important part of the story, right? Like in the Dark Knight, Gotham just feels more like a battleground that they're on, and that's really all it serves. You know, don't look at the buildings too much. Don't look at the streets, whatever. It's secondary. This is like, look at all this work we put into the set design. Take it in. This is the character of the movie.
What about Wayne Manor? It was like this gothic cathedral type of design on the inside. Cool as well. And just gorgeous. A real place. It was filmed in a real, like, gothic cathedral. So really bold, the design.
What'd you think of Alfred?
Alfred's great. He's a little no, he's part. I initially, like, we're kind of used to a very old Alfred, and he's a bit on the younger side.
Yeah, like in his 50s.
Yeah.
You know, young for Alfred.
But, like, Batman's going to be running around for another 10 years or so, or more. So Alfred will age as these movies go on.
Does it not feel like he's too good looking, though? Like, he's just as good looking as Robert Pattinson.
Dapper man.
He's older, you know? He's kind of ripped. He's got a bit more bulk to him. The hair's really done nice. I have a crush on Alfred, I guess, but whatever. I feel he's too good looking. It kind of takes me out of it sometimes. I picture a more
too good looking.
He's man.
He's too cool. He kind of has some swag to him, to be honest.
The accent kind of throws me off sometimes too, because I'm not an expert, but to me it sounds like a London kind of Cockney accent, which isn't a posh British accent. So I'm like,
well, okay, if you want to get into
it. Sorry, I'm being nitpicky. I'm part British, so maybe that's why. But it just doesn't sound like posh enough for me. It sounds weird. It sounds like a guy pretending to be a butler sometimes. I don't hate him though. It doesn't take away from the movie at all. It's kind of being a nitpicky, I guess. But
this movie really does check off a lot of boxes. Almost all of the boxes, you know. It gives us the Batmobile. It shows us like how Batman will traverse the city. He pulls out a wingsuit. So I'm assuming the next movie he'll implement that into his cape and whatnot. You know, it shows us the Penguin and the Falcone crime family, along with the Maronis and their involvement in the city and how they've paid off the cops and the DA and everybody, the corruptness. Perfect way to introduce what we're dealing with in Gotham.
I like the way they did Carmine Falcone. Yeah. I mean, very stereotypical mobster.
Yeah.
But, and it's weird seeing the Penguin as kind of a mobster kind of figure. The guy who played Carmine Falcone was in Do the Right Thing. I think he's that Spike Lee movie. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I haven't.
If you want to see a really crazy movie about like race relations, and it's from like 1989, it's got a big ending. That's all I'll say. But it's a cool movie, and I think the guy who plays Carmine Falcone he's one of those Italian actors that has made a living off of playing mobsters, and they just play the same. Like, you think if Joey Diaz had made it in acting, that's what he'd be doing, just playing mobsters all the time.
Which he does for the most part.
Yeah, really, in that horrible Sopranos movie. But sorry, Uncle Joey.
Right?
Sorry?
You're not a fan of it?
Watch it. Even though you're not into The Sopranos, it's a prequel anyway, so it's not going to spoil. I just want you to see how terrible this movie is.
Okay.
You'll watch it and you're like, this doesn't feel like
Can I watch it if I hadn't watched The Sopranos?
It's a prequel.
Yeah.
So it's not spoiling anything for you.
Yeah, but like, will it be hard to follow? Because I have no prior knowledge.
It's kind of all over the place.
Okay.
So, but you should watch The Sopranos, more importantly.
I know. My TV backlog is pretty bad. I watch more movies than I do serious drama TV series.
I'm the opposite, but
yeah, I know.
I've been telling you to watch Better Call Saul. Forget that. If you're gonna watch, I would watch The Sopranos. I would say that's more.
Yeah, those are the two that I really, really need to catch.
But I'd say Sopranos is more important because that's an amazing show. Anyway, yeah. So
speaking of which, though, Colin Farrell as the Penguin is getting his own TV show.
Oh, cool. I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, right?
He didn't stick out to me too much. I didn't hate it, but like, I don't know. I wouldn't say the villains are what's carrying this movie. Very opposite to The Dark Knight.
No, the main center of this movie is Batman and Gordon and Catwoman trying to figure out what's going on here with the Riddler and these mob disappearances, mob hits, and whatnot.
Yeah, I don't know if I need that Penguin explored more. They didn't really grab my interest with him. And if he didn't have the nose, he's just like some mobster guy.
I'm just reading here. Yeah, it's a spin-off of the Batman exploring the Penguin's rise to power in Gotham's criminal underworld. I'm just trying to figure out if it's a prequel or not. It's taking place 1 week following the events of the Batman and explores the rise to power. I think this could be cool. It's telling us what's happening a week after that movie happened and the city got flooded.
Yeah, and that kind of chaos and how he rises up out of that. I just think it'd be cool. I don't know. He didn't blow me away. So
doesn't look like Matt Reeves has any involvement.
I don't know.
By HBO though.
Oh, so okay, well, it could be really good then.
I don't know why I'm not seeing Matt Reeves as a producer.
Maybe he doesn't want to do it.
Matt Reeves is the executive producer.
Guy only has so much time, and it's exhausting directing all the time.
I'm excited for this.
You
know, Batman's going to be referenced. He might even be in it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's something else we should talk about. Batman's ability to pull so much content from its other characters and its villains.
Because Batman has the best rogues gallery. He has the best side characters.
It's the best superhero universe, whatever you want to call
the
it.
best side characters, the most identifiable side characters: the Penguin, Mr. Freeze, Poison Ivy, Killer Croc, Joker, Riddler, Bane. It goes on and on and on, and he has the most obscure villains and side characters too that are also super iconic.
Yeah, and it's the one where the setting really matters, and it's such an integral part. I think it just checks off all the boxes of what you want. I mean, I just put it on another level above any superhero. I'd almost look at it as separate from the DCU or from just superhero franchise films as a thing. I'd look at it as almost a separate entity. There's like superhero films and then there's Batman.
But can you imagine, like, this is a semi-realistic take on Batman. How would he approach a character like Killer Croc or Man-Bat or King Shark? These, like, animal supernatural...
I feel like that would be tough to do.
Those characters might not fit into this universe.
You could do, like, Scarecrow.
Yeah, and I think the two biggest possibilities for the next villains they do is Scarecrow. And, Joker kind of had a deleted scene. He had an appearance in it. So Scarecrow, Joker, or Mr. Freeze, I think.
Has that been attempted since Arnold Schwarzenegger?
No.
Oh, my God.
Nope.
That's the best Mr. Freeze portrayal of, like, for all the wrong reasons.
But I want them to tell a Mr. Freeze story where, like, we sympathize with him because, like, at his whole as a character, Mr. Freeze, like, he's trying to save his wife who has this disease or whatnot, Nora, which is a big thing in the comics, and he's always trying to save his wife, and he goes overboard in the process of doing so. So I hope they actually maybe do him for the next movie and have that sympathetic villain, because where you're kind of like, I feel for him.
More complex.
Yep.
And I feel like it needs an update because, like, Arnold Schwarzenegger just played it as an action hero, like, what killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age. And he'll be like, let's kick some ice. That's actually a line in the movie. There's also, he freezes Robin and he's like, stay cool, bird boy.
They definitely got to reintroduce Mr. Freeze back into the mix after that. And
that's Batman and Robin for you. But
yeah. Absolutely ridiculous, but... Imagine, too, like, the next villain being Mr. Freeze, and, like, he throws the city into, like, a deep winter, a really violent winter, and everything in Gotham kind of stops. I think it'd be a really cool pitch.
Could do really cool set design with that, with the ice mixed in.
That's exactly what I'm thinking.
Yeah. That would be... And I feel like he's known enough to do. I don't think I feel like the animal ones, you would really run the risk of it looking stupid.
Yeah, they're not going anywhere near that. I bet they'll drop a couple Easter eggs here and there, but they're not going to go anywhere near that, in my opinion.
Like, imagine trying to do this movie with, like, Killer Croc as the main villain. It would take away from, like...
You can. I see a scene maybe where... Oh, my God. It'd be so cool if, like, Batman had to sneak into this building, and the only way he could go in is through the sewers, and you get a Killer Croc tease in the sewer. Mm-hmm. Something like that where he just makes an appearance because he can't carry the plot of a whole movie. No. Which is what I thought in the first place with Bane, but I don't know. The Dark Knight Rises is a complicated movie.
They kind of killed that. I think it's good with Bane.
It's good, but it just has an unbelievable amount of plot holes, and at some point I'm like...
That's true.
But you know what? I'm just going to say, I'll go as far as to say this is my favorite Batman movie.
The Batman?
Yep.
Oh, or the Dark Knight then?
I'm going to say the Batman.
Wow.
As a comic fan,
I guess
a die-hard Batman fan. Batman's my favorite superhero. Matt Reeves did it exactly how I would like it. Yeah. So I understand, like, the plot may be deeper and there might be better performances from Christopher Nolan's series, but everything else as that Matt Reeves did visually with Gotham and the tones that they set and the edgy take, the comic adaptations, it stacks up for me. Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, makes it a better movie. A better Batman adaptation than Christopher Nolan's.
Oh, probably for that. Yeah, if you're like into comics and that kind of, you're ranking it
but
on
like
that basis.
as like a movie, you're not taking any comics content into consideration, The Dark Knight's a better movie.
Mm-hmm. I would say, yeah, and it's and I feel like The Dark Knight is it's kind of just adapting Batman to kind of just a regular movie, like a crime drama, I guess.
And that's not easy to do. Like, I'm gonna give Christopher Nolan credit for doing a ultra urban, realistic Batman. Mm-hmm. Like, what would Batman be like if he was real? That's what Christopher Nolan did, and I'm actually kind of surprised that it did so well.
Yeah, you think it would have bothered comic fans more?
If that kind of thing were made now?
Maybe. Maybe. I don't know. I think...
The look of comic book movies has changed.
Yeah.
One of the biggest movies, like, the past 2 months or so, it was Ant-Man. Like, what? Mm-hmm. Ant-Man Quantumania. And it would have... So, like, everything is out the window now.
And it would have been less restrictive in 2008 because people had less idea of what a comic book movie was supposed to be.
A lot of these B-list characters are holding the pillars of superhero movies right now.
See, yeah, that's another thing I have. That's
like,
kind of weird.
But you love Peacemaker, and that was one of the best DC projects of the past 2 years.
I'm not saying...
Isn't that weird?
It can be good, definitely. And I agree. Yeah, it is weird that it's that Peacemaker is one of my favorite projects and a lot of people's favorite projects recently. But that's
just cool.
How long can they keep this up with obscure characters holding it up? There's already kind of been a decline on the MCU front slightly. And it's like the more obscure these characters get, just to me, it's harder to pull people in. Because you get more of like, who? Like Shang-Chi, for example. Most people are just like, who's that? Like, what is that?
Well, DC got monsters like Frankenstein and Man-Thing, you know, even Dracula is a character and whatnot. So I love the monsters when in the DC universe. And I hope we get that like on a separate note from Matt Reeves. You know how James Gunn is doing his thing?
Yeah.
I'm excited for him to just explore that darker monster tone stuff because they can't really do that stuff in the Matt Reeves movie, you know? Like we said, it wouldn't really work.
Yeah, well, I mean, the DC should just cover the dark and the raunchy. And that's what you need. And, and Marvel can be the good boy who goes to church and, you know, does his homework and everything, right? So that's the kind of angle they should take. But we're not the first.
Well, this proves that like the dark angle is what they should go with, I think. Considering this movie's great success.
It will be fascinating to see what they do.
The overall audience agrees that they like this a lot.
770 million. That's good.
Pretty great.
No, that's really good. That's really good that's Quentin Tarantino's like highest grossing movie. So that's not shabby at all.
That's a huge feat for Matt Reeves, man.
Yeah.
I'm going to say right now, we have to do Matt Reeves' Planet of the Apes
video, course.
Because it's one of my favorite trilogies of all time. I love those Planet of the Apes movies, and I think you're going to appreciate them a lot more upon a rewatch.
Oh, no, I love them. I completely agree with you.
When did you recently see War for the Planet of the Apes?
No, I watched them when they all first came out.
Yeah.
I've probably seen the trilogy all the way through like 3-4 times.
Okay, great.
I like the movies.
Great.
I watched them, last time I watched them was probably like 4 months ago.
Nice. Okay, great.
So
okay.
I'm pretty familiar with it.
Yeah.
And, and that's Matt Reeves too. It shows like that one almost feels more like
he's a great filmmaker.
Yeah. Those movies almost feel more like Christopher Nolan in the sense that it takes place in our world. So it's just more normal looking. Like he knows when to bring in kind of... It's impressive that he can do kind of more of a, for lack of a better term, plain looking movie like The Planet of the Apes. The last 2 movies in the trilogy. And then when he needs to turn it on and make a distinct set, he can do it with the Batman.
Matt Reeves does super dramatic movies that are visually stunning. Mm-hmm. You know, with Christopher Nolan... He does do visually stunning stuff, you know, with Inception and whatnot. What's that? Did Christopher Nolan do a space movie?
He did Interstellar.
Yeah.
Then Dunkirk.
But Matt Reeves, like the deep, vibrant contrast of colors, even in the Batman, but also in the Planet of the Apes trilogy. You get that also. So he's kind of making a name for himself. And you can start to recognize things as this is a Matt Reeves project, which is great. Which is great for filmmaking.
Yeah, and he's creative with the franchise he's given. It doesn't have an assembly line feel. See, this is my worry though. If DC gets their shit together, is it gonna become less interesting? Because if they find a formula that works, are they going to get assembly line-esque like Marvel? That's my only worry. Because I've always said this DC run of the past 15 years will be considered terrible, but I would argue that looking back on it in the future will be way more interesting than looking back on Marvel, because we'll be able to look back on all the DC movies and be like, this is when they tried this, then they went this direction, that didn't work, then they did this. Like, it'd be fascinating to look back on. Marvel's just going to be samey.
But look, as a Marvel fan, I'm going to look back at Marvel like a run of comics. You know, this Marvel universe it's its own thing, just like many of the other Marvel comic book storylines. Like the MCU is its own comic book storyline. So hopefully, maybe eventually we'll get a Marvel universe reboot. The entire thing will reboot. I think they will. When Secret Wars comes out, the Kang Dynasty, I'm willing to bet, which is still 5, 6, 7 years away. I think there's potential Marvel could reset their universe.
Oh my god, I might be so over it by then.
Yeah. But what if they reboot it and then focus on darker stories? What if they decide to switch it up? Because Kevin Feige, who is the CEO of Marvel Studios, is very, very into the story writing. He's a big part of assembling this bigger picture. Yeah. So, and the bolder superhero projects are becoming more popular. So they can do anything now, and they can get away with it now. Doing anything as goofy and outlandish, you know, people. It's proven that we like that. These goofy out there superhero projects. Peacemaker is ridiculous. Like Thor Ragnarok is.
But it's got to work sometimes. Like it's to me, because Love and Thunder took it too much.
Love and Thunder.
Too much.
They took it too far. But no,
like,
you know what?
Depends on the character.
Love and Thunder didn't. Love and Thunder took like the comedic approach too far.
I feel like they jumped the gun on Thor's comedic ability, because I think it really worked in Ragnarok.
Yep.
And it was a surprise to everyone. And then they were like, full speed ahead. That's what we're going to do.
They slipped.
And that's just, I don't know if Thor, like, it worked once, great, but I don't know if you can just go that full direction with Thor.
Thor's character has been through the washing machine like 10 times. His character has changed up so much. Anyway, this is Batman talk, but we could just sit here and talk about these different approaches to things.
I think Batman definitely has the best movies and is the most fascinating and is the most interesting catalog to look back on as far as all the movies. And I mean, it's even fascinating to look back on the Adam West stuff and some of those early serials where
it's so totally fitting though that that's the beginning, that's where it started. And it makes sense that that's where it started and what it's evolved into today. It makes sense, and I respect it, and it's great that they've become classic pop culture icons. And
you like things that change, right? Like, I mean, my favorite pop culture entities or my favorite bands or favorite music artists, they're people who tried different things, and like they had this phase where they were doing this kind of music, or they had this phase where they're doing this kind of music. And it's the same with Batman. You can say they had this phase where the movies had this kind of style and feel, whether it's the Christopher Nolan. Then they had the period where they were more ridiculous in the 60s and just, slapstick.
They change with the times. And that's cool, because Batman is like a historical thing now. Like, Batman has been present for over 50, 70 years.
Well, it's like
the 30s,
80.
Right? The 1930s.
Oh, then it's like 80 years, over 80 years.
That's insane. He's like a historic figure, Batman. And
when does he go into public domain? That's the real question.
I don't know how that stuff works.
Do you ever think about that though?
I don't know how
Mickey
that stuff
Mouse
works.
is almost 100 years old.
Yeah.
You go out of public domain like close to 100 years.
But doesn't like Disney just buy the domain back again?
No, they do some. No, you can't. But what they do,
They can't?
here's what they do.
I don't know how it works.
They do this crazy. They do this legal runaround. There's a loophole.
Yeah.
So, what Disney did is, I will probably not explain it 100% properly, but for example, Steamboat Willie
Yes.
is about to turn 100 or is 100.
Yes.
So they would lose the rights to that. Now it's in the public domain. Anybody can
Okay.
use it. But if you notice what Disney has been doing in the past 7 years is Steamboat Willie's part of the logo and the intro to the movies. So now they can trademark that. And now it's exempt from public domain because it's being used as advertising.
As an
therefore it's a logo.
identifiable.
Yeah, and that's what they're going to do
Gotcha.
with Mickey Mouse. That's what they're going to do with Batman. That's what we're going to do with all these characters that are about to go into the public domain. Because
Batman will become like an identifiable figure for DC.
so then they can
essentially.
trademark it for advertising.
Batman will become trademarked. Huh. Interesting. I didn't know how that's how that could possibly work.
So that why Disney uses Steamboat Willie now at the beginning of movies is because they wanted to hold on to the trademark. So
Okay.
you or I just can't use Steamboat Willie at will. Right?
Cool. Well, I'm sure if we're doing this podcast way down the line, like there's always gonna be Batman to talk about. But I'm very, very happy with where Batman is right now.
Kicking ass as usual.
I love this Matt Reeves universe. It's exactly how I like my Batman, so I'm super happy with it, and I'm optimistic actually for the Penguin series. And like if it doesn't hit, I don't mind. Like it's not gonna affect the next Batman movie in a huge way.
Well, it can be just all right like Gotham was. Or
Yeah,
something.
that's fine. I love Gotham.
Well, I know, but Gotham didn't
I
get
grew
this
up.
huge response.
I
right?
grew up in elementary school and high school watching Gotham
Mm-hmm.
every single week, so it was crazy and stupid, but I liked it.
I think the Batman is better than the Joker. Is better than that movie for sure. I like
Yeah,
it.
sure. We should do a Joker episode also because it is great.
Oh, it is amazing. I think once you get more educated though, and I mean this has been talked about before, and you realize the similarities it has to other movies,
Yeah.
it takes it down a peg for me.
It's
I mean,
not
the one they always talk
most
about.
creative.
Yeah, the
'cause
one
it
they always
has-
talk about is Taxi Driver, and I saw that movie
Yeah.
before I saw Joker, so it really sticks in my head because I can
Yeah.
notice the similarities a lot.
But I
here.
appreciate that Joker is a thing. That
No,
they
of
did
course.
a Joker movie like that. I'll gladly welcome it.
As a masterclass in acting, it's a great movie. That's
An amazing
its
performance
appeal.
Joaquin gives, that was instantly became iconic. That took over the social media world, the entire world. Joker took over when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
His face was everywhere. That image was everywhere. So DC has bigger pull than you think.
Oh, well, if they go in the right direction, yeah. I mean,
Everybody in the world knows Superman, but it just hasn't been done to its full potential yet. No one's made a full halt. This is a fantastic movie. Superman. It's
speaking of power, though, DC has more iconic characters than Marvel does. More recognizable characters
yes,
than
they
Marvel
do.
does.
Yes, they do.
That's why it's so weird that Marvel went on to become more popular. But
Batman reaches multiple generations.
Batman, Superman, Joker, like right there,
Yeah.
probably the three most
Flash
famous.
and Aquaman.
Flash, another one.
It goes
Wonder
deeper,
Woman was huge back
Yeah.
in the day.
Having like Green Arrow and Green
Mm-hmm.
Lantern, characters like that. Their B-listers are pretty big too.
Well, yeah, Wonder Woman was on TV in the 70s, and like everybody had a crush on Linda Carter, the woman who played her.
Yeah.
So that was already pretty etched in pop culture by that time. So,
But
they could do it.
yeah,
They could be better.
pretty excited for where DC's headed. But that's because Batman is my favorite superhero. So that's our thoughts, I guess, guys.
Yeah.
For
I think we can leave it there.
our episode 8, just talking Batman. Overall consensus is we love it. I gave it a review when it came out. I did a review on my Instagram, and I just looked back at it from over a year ago, and I gave it a 8.7 out of 10.
Okay.
It's pretty high.
That is, I might give it a bit higher than that, but that's a fair rating. That's for sure.
It's a very, very high rating. but I love it. And if you don't see it as being that great, take into account that I'm a huge Batman fan. And it just did how I like Batman perfectly. So
and
it's a biased fans review.
And I would just say Batman as a pop culture entity is one of the greatest ever. Just one of the greatest pop culture things, man. Period. Music, movies, TV, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's just one of the best things to ever happen in American pop culture history.
There's so much depth and like so many stories you could tell just related to Batman.
And it's so Americana. It's one of those recognizable like American symbols that the Bat logo is. You know, that's going to live beyond anybody was involved in Batman.
Yeah,
for a long time.
Well, that's episode 8, guys. We thank you for coming along and listen to us talk about Batman. I've been wanting to do this for a while, but we'll be back next week with you guys for episode 9 of The Slime. We'll see you next week.
Bye.
Thank you guys for listening. Bye.
Bye-bye.